Great prompt, Maria, thank you. So I do want to welcome everyone here today to today's town hall. As I mentioned earlier, we have about 400 faculty and staff that have registered for today. We've got a lot of great questions in advance. It is being recorded, as you all just heard, and we will send a link to the recording to the campus for those of you that want to re-watch it, or for those faculty and staff that could not join us today, as we typically do. I was on a town hall yesterday with the chancellor. It was hosted by Alumni Relations, and the chancellor, shared a statement that it feels like time has stood still, and it really resonated with me yesterday because it feels like it has for a lot of us. It seems like it's been one big day since March, but hopefully you all have had some chance to unwind and relax this summer. It's been a beautiful summer for the most part, at least I think, very sunny and pleasant, so that made things easier. We're getting ready for the fall semester. It's a couple of short weeks away. Hopefully you had a chance to review the return to work guides that were sent last Friday. We're going to spend a lot of time today talking about what the campus is going to look like, policies, procedures, all the things that you would expect to hear as we start the fall semester in a very different way. We are doing a town hall for students tomorrow. Dean Amy Finley will moderate that town hall, and the chancellor, the provost, and Laura Drabchuk and Carol Glick will also be in that, along with Melissa Stone. So it's going to be our typical format. We have short presentations by 4 presenters today. Then we will open it up to Q&A. Feel free to submit a question during the presentation. There's a Q&A icon along the bottom. And if you did read the Return to Campus guides, there are a few areas that we're still finalizing, and so there will definitely be another major email communication next week, finalizing some of those last minute details. We're shooting for maybe Wednesday, so you have a couple days to prepare before the semester starts. I did, and I'm sure other people are going to acknowledge, there's been a lot of tremendous and great thoughtful work put in by the Emergency Operations Center team. I joke when it feels like one big day because we meet every day, and we have pretty much since March, and I'm honored to be on that committee personally because it's an outstanding group of people that are extremely dedicated, and I can't say enough about that group. And then I also just want to make sure that I acknowledge Chancellor Grasso's leadership, because he has been the one driving the bus, and I think we're seeing that a lot of decisions that we made early are being copied right now from other universities, athletic programs, and other institutions across the country. So feels good to be first. And thank you, Domenico, for your leadership in many, many, many areas. So today we have Chancellor Grasso that's going to kick things off. When I turn things over, Provost Sue Elcock will talk a lot about the, the academic side of the house, if you will. Emergency Management Director Laura Drabchuk will talk high-level policy thought that went into the look and feel of what campus is going to look like to keep people safe. And then finally, Executive Director for Facilities Operation Carol Glick will talk a little bit more about some of the details into the process and procedures that we're all going to need to follow in order to make sure that our plan works and we keep the entire campus community safe. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chancellor Grasso, and he's going to officially kick off the town hall. Chancellor.
Thank you very much, Ken, and it's a pleasure to welcome all of you to the town hall and to participate with us in discussing what the fall plans are going to look like. I do want to echo a lot of the things that Ken said. It has been essentially one long day since the middle of March, and many people have been working around the clock every day, weekends included, to try to keep us safe and to plan for the future. And I want to thank everybody. I especially want to thank Laura Drabchuk for leading the EOC team, and our provost for leading the academic side of the house and all the planning that's gone on. We've done so much work. What I have been fortunate to experience is that when I came to campus, I inherited a bank account in which deposits had been made over the 60 years, deposits in the form of trust, collaboration, and community spirit. And now we're taking out withdrawals on that corpus that's been built up over 60 years. It's been our sense of community, trust, and collaboration that has made the transition from our on-campus community to the remote community that we have had to adapt to so easy to move towards. And I want to thank everybody, faculty, staff, and the students for being part of this community that has been so resilient and adaptive and easy to work with in terms of moving to this new reality that we're all facing. I do want to say that you're going to hear from the true stars in a moment, the ones that did all the planning, and I want to thank them. But I do want to say that there have been a lot of meetings. EOC has been meeting virtually daily. In addition to that, we have a COVID leadership team that meets 3 or 4 times a week. In addition to that, I've been meeting virtually every day with the Ann Arbor and Flint collaborative team early in the morning, sometimes way too early in the morning, and talking about things that relate to the entire campus. So all of our decisions have been informed by a great deal of information, a great deal of thought and debate. And it's all been designed to keep us safe and to ensure that we can deliver the quality education that everybody has come to expect from our faculty and our staff. So with that, I'll just say I want to thank everyone that has been so instrumental in getting us here. And I'll turn it over to Laura and to Carol, who can start to talk about what the physical plant is going to look like. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or allow the experts to answer questions as they come in. So I'll turn it over to Laura, or Ken, I'll turn it over to you and you turn it over to Laura. I don't know how this.
You can cut the middleman out. We'll go right to Laura.
Okay.
Thanks, Chancellor.
All right, thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Ken. We've made numerous preparations to keep our campus community safe during the fall, which includes keeping as many operations and courses as remote as possible. The measures we have taken are based on research and public health expertise. It's this science and data that has driven and informed our decisions for the fall term. We have been tracking cases in the Tri-County area, knowing as a commuter campus, this is where the campus community members primarily reside. We have seen Wayne County as the hotspot in the state with nearly 30,000 cases, Oakland County over 16,000 cases, and there are over 11,000 cases in Macomb County. If we exclude the city of Detroit, which has over 14,000 cases, the city of Dearborn leads Wayne County with 1,639 cases. The city of Dearborn is averaging the highest daily increase compared to other cities within the county. The state's highest positivity rate is the age group of 20 to 29-year-olds at 22%. Therefore, we have intentionally kept our densities low for the fall term. Decisions for the fall term were not taken lightly, and many hours of deliberation were needed to identify the way forward. Our colleges have been extremely thoughtful in identifying the courses that have to be taught on campus. The registrar's office has worked diligently to space out classes over a 12-hour day and throughout 10 academic buildings. Not all buildings will be open. As an example, the Mardigian Library will only have pickup service available, and the bookstore will provide curbside pickup. Our classrooms and teaching labs will look very different come the fall. Facilities operation has gone through each classroom and lab and has laid out the room to maintain the 6-foot social distancing requirement, which means each space will be 30 to 40% of the normal capacity. You may find plexiglass barriers where the 6-foot social distancing could not be maintained. There will be cleaning supplies in the classrooms and labs to clean your desk and workspace before and after. There is hand sanitizer throughout all open buildings. All students arriving from international destinations will practice 14 days of enhanced social distancing upon arrival in accordance with CDC guidance. Any faculty and student returning on campus for in-person instruction are strongly encouraged to receive a COVID-19 test before coming to campus for the start of the term. The university has partnered with Henry Ford Medical Center Fairlane. This testing will be available starting this week and running through September 4th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. by appointment only. Information on scheduling an appointment for testing is being sent out in an email. All students, staff, faculty, and visitors are required to wear a face covering that covers the nose and mouth while anywhere on the campus grounds, including inside buildings and outside, and while on the university-provided shuttle. Shuttle service will be limited with enhanced cleaning protocols, and only specified seats can be used. During the semester, all members of the community who are to be on campus will check for symptoms prior to coming to campus through an online tool or mobile app. Should you receive a red screen, do not, I repeat, do not come to campus. Notify your supervisor and follow the instructions provided in the app. HR is also available to assist you as needed. Additional information is available in the Return to Campus Guide. If a student receives a red screen, they are also instructed not to come to campus. They are to notify Student Affairs at the designated number provided in the Return to Campus Guide. Prior to entry into any academic building, you will be required to wear your face covering, show your green screen on your mobile device to the screener at the door. If you do not have a mobile device, you will be required to answer the same questions upon your arrival. Your temperature will be taken with a touchless thermometer, and you will need to swipe your M card, which will cross-check your access to the building. We understand that with this new process, there may be a few minor bumps during the first couple of weeks of class, so we ask in advance for your patience and understanding. If there is a positive case on campus, the Office of Emergency Management will work closely with the local health officials to provide assistance with contact tracing. Each positive case will be treated on a case-by-case basis. Once information is obtained, an evaluation will be conducted and a determination will be made on next steps. So if you receive a call from a public health official or a university official, please answer your phone or return the call. It is your health and that of your loved ones that are at risk. In summary, I encourage you to do your part before coming to campus by taking your temperature and honestly answering the questions in this health screening app. While on campus, be patient with the screening process, maintain social distancing, wear your face covering, and practice good hygiene by keeping your hands away from your face and wash your hands frequently. If at any time you receive a red screen during your health screening or you test positive for COVID-19, do not come to campus. Or if for any reason you are feeling ill, stay home and give yourself time to get well. The safety of the campus community is in your hands. We need everyone to do their part in order for us to have a safe, productive academic fall term. Ken, back to you.
Thank you, Laura. Very succinct. Thank you. Carol, anything you would like to add on that look and feel, process, procedures, other elements that we'd like to share with the campus community in advance of the return for those coming back to campus?
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. It's always my privilege to have conversations with people, and I'd like to just spend the next 5 minutes or so providing sort of a brief overview of what it will feel like on campus, and also to try and link all of the great information that Laura just provided for us to some of the documentation that exists. So specifically, I'll talk about signage, building status and access, density reduction, social distancing, online training, daily health screening, and last but not least, cleaning and disinfecting. So online training, I want to refer everyone to our Return to Campus Guide. That is a wealth of information. It links to lots of documents on the website, which will be, of course, your ongoing source for continually updated information. So online training first. Every faculty and staff member returning to campus must complete COVID online training through my link before you come to campus. So there's a link to that in the Return to Campus Guide on page 8. It's also on the EHS website. As Laura mentioned, when you come to campus, before you come to campus, complete your daily health screening. This is because what we're asking is that you know before you leave the house. If you have a red screen, just don't come. When you come to campus, then you will go to the screening station. And you'll present your green screen. You will get your temperature taken, and you will scan your M card. And the purpose of scanning your M card, if you are instructional faculty, is to assure that you're in the right building at the right time. And this is the same process that our students will be going through as well. So information on health screening is on page 9 of the Return to Campus Guide. When you come to campus, you will see lots of signage that's designed to help all of us remember the things that we need to do on campus. So specifically, the major things, and you're going to hear this again and again, are stay home if you're sick, wear a newly laundered face covering every time you come to campus, maintain a 6-foot social distance, and wash your hands frequently. When you come to campus, we have 3 different types of building status: open and screened, closed and locked, and closed and offline. A list of each of our buildings and their corresponding statuses is published on our website, and the link to the building list as well as the definition of the statuses and what they actually mean are on page 5 of the Return to Campus Guide. All of our buildings will be locked except when and where classes are scheduled. So 1 hour before the start of each class, the building will be open and available, and screeners will be on site to conduct you through the building if you are instructional faculty. Researcher access will continue through the already established sign up and screening processes. One-time access and M-Card access will continue to be available for faculty and staff through your department access coordinators. And again, links to these processes are on page 6 of the Return to Campus Guide. More conversation around density reduction and social distancing. I want to reemphasize what Laura has said. Everyone who can work remotely must continue to do so. Also, in support of reduced densities, we've reduced classroom capacities, as Laura indicated. We've installed plexiglass shields where 6-foot social distancing can't be maintained. And again, face coverings are required whenever you're on campus. A link to the face covering guide and policy is provided in your Return to Campus Guide on page 11. And last but not least, cleaning and disinfection. Hand sanitizer is provided at every building entrance, also at the elevators. Hand washing with soap and water for 20 seconds is the preferred method of cleaning your hands. So if you have the availability of soap and water, that's where you should go. Cleaning of high-touch surfaces is the shared responsibility of all of our campus stakeholders. In support of that, we've moved all of our custodial services from midnight to days and afternoons, so you'll see them present as you're in the building. Disinfectant spray bottles and paper towels are available throughout the buildings, and faculty and staff and students share the responsibility of wiping down high-touch surfaces throughout the day. And that is all that I have for you today. I certainly will be happy to answer questions as we get to the end of the presentation, and I want to thank every one of you for your partnership and your commitment to the health and safety of our organization and our campus.
Thank you, Carol. And there are quite a few questions that have come in primarily for you and Laura, and we'll get to those next, but I'm going to turn it over to Provost Sue Elcock to talk about some of the more specific policy procedures for faculty. And Sue, take it away.
I will do so. It's good to see everyone. I hope everyone is well. And I trust you're finding this conversation useful so far. I personally, as we continue to live in this kind of volatile world, I've kind of come to the conclusion that sharing good information, is one way that, we can sort of come together and get a grip. So what do I have to contribute at this point? I would say a challenge and a plea. You don't need to hear from me by now that an enormous amount of hard work, thoughtful work has gone into thinking about how to keep our community safe and healthy in the fall, while also continuing to deliver an academic experience worthy of our commitment to our students. We have a plan, we have policies, we have procedures. These have been set out in countless very lengthy emails, for which I apologize. for the ones I sent at least, recently, and very nice snazzy return to campus guide, and of course in today's presentation. But you know, all of that is really for nothing if we don't take these things to heart and follow them to the letter. We've all seen the news. It takes very, very little to trigger, you know, untold consequences. Now, in the effort to keep us safe, several tough decisions had to be made. One of these is around faculty and staff workspace, that folks will not be able to freely access their office for extended periods of work time in the fall term. This, I will just say, was a bear of a decision, not made lightly, many factors behind it, which I won't review here. You fully realize the additional burden this places on people and its disproportionate effect on some of our colleagues, but nonetheless, I ask you to abide strictly by this policy. In return, we're doing what we can to help. We're in the final stages of preparing safe, reservable, quiet, temporary workspaces on campus, places where faculty and staff can sort of book themselves in to have time to think and work and prep and write. This will be all teed up for the beginning of the fall term, more information on sign-up procedures to come. We'll monitor this, see how it's working, if we need additional space and so on. We ask that you let us know your thoughts as we proceed, and I am sorry that this is necessary. Another topic of interest that's been bouncing around, enrollment updates. I can share the latest word from Melissa Stone, our Vice Provost for Enrollment Management. By the way, a shout out to Melissa and her team, the entire orientation staff, all the advisors, indeed all those who've been laboring nonstop to remind students of the opportunities we have to offer here at Dearborn under very difficult circumstances. We are currently at about 96% of projected 2020 fall enrollment by headcount. New FIDIACs are on track to be at least flat. We have 2 orientation sessions still to come. We do expect transfers to be sadly down, but that is absolutely consistent with what we're hearing everywhere. Graduate enrollment projections, where, you know, which is where we were most apprehensive due to things, international things, are coming in better than projected for returning students, and that's helping to offset declines in transfers and in new graduates, and it's keeping us more in line with overall revenue projections. So that's the state of play. As you all know, this doesn't get totally finalized till we get through drop and add. Next up, I just wanted to say, as some at least of you will know, a small group of us, including Laura and Carol, Mitch, and Carla, and one of our 2 new instructional designers in the hub. We had a series of listening sessions with faculty, which I really enjoyed. I learned a lot. One issue that bubbled up in more than one place was a desire on the part of at least some faculty and staff to know what kinds of information and encouragement, you know, is communicated to our students, so that everyone is kind of working from a shared knowledge base. We're working on how to facilitate that information flow more soon. As Ken said, there is a student town hall tomorrow. Student Affairs would also especially like everyone to know that there's an email and a phone number that's been launched specifically for those students who need assistance, connecting with a food pantry, help reaching out to faculty, referring to counseling, whatever it might be, just so you know that there are these access routes and that you can share them with your students. And when I shut up, I'll put it in the question and answer so you can see that information. Finally, I'll close by saying, you know, as so often, I think our students get things spot on. So I want to end by reminding you, if you get to the end of our snazzy Return to Campus guide, at the very end, there's the Wolverine Care Pledge, which was written in conjunction with our students, with students up at Flint. And again, it's at the end of the Return to Campus guide. Take a look at it. They say, we take this pledge today because we want to protect ourselves, our families, and our community. We want others to experience our vibrant campuses sooner rather than later. And most indubitably, we have it within our power to save lives. And they close the pledge by noting, history will judge our contributions to ending this global pandemic. And I think that sums up one of the most important of the challenges we're facing together this fall term. So please do read the pledge and make that commitment. So, and there I will be quiet.
Thank you, Sue.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to echo just a couple of things. We did a video shoot and a photo shoot on campus to prepare for the guides. Very socially distanced, very safe, very spread out. The students all showed up with their face coverings on. They were taking instruction very seriously. And then I don't want to call out any names because I don't want to miss anyone, but we were in a couple of the labs for some of the photo shoots, and the faculty and staff involved in the safety precautions in those buildings have done an incredible job. I mean, we were not only were we telling and directing students where to stand, but there were even added extra safety protocols that the faculty were, telling them where to stand opposite sides of the hallway, and I think they were like 10 feet apart when we were all done. So, I know we talk a lot about the EOC, but the message has been heard, and it has definitely rippled over to a lot of other departments on campus that, I personally observed last week. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So with that, we have a bunch of questions that were submitted in advance. I'm going to start with those, and I know questions are starting to come in. I will say we did get a couple that were related to strategic planning, and the chancellor shared not too long ago in the communication that we're going to have a fall town hall for strategic planning. So we want to focus today on the protocols for coming back to campus. And as you can imagine, there's a lot coming your way, Laura and Carol. So I'll start with a common theme of what happens if a student does test positive or does have COVID. What does that class look like that he or she may have been in? And if a faculty member were to become ill with COVID and they have to sit out for a period of time, what is the plan to replace that instructor, at least temporarily? Mm-hmm. So I'll let Laura, Carol.
Laura, Laura, Carol, do you want to start with that one? Then I'll talk about the faculty dimension.
Yep, that would be perfect.
It plays into the contact tracing, Laura, as you know, that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So as I mentioned, we will have contact tracing in place once notification is made through student affairs. That information will funnel through to the Office of Emergency Management, and we'll work in partnership with the Wayne County Public Health Department, and we'll make some determinations based on the information that we will have, and then based on guidance from the medical experts and from the health experts at the health department, we'll make a decision then on what we're going to do with the class, and then the individual, of course, because they tested positive, will have to be out for the length of time as identified by CDC guidance.
I love the fight song, Laura.
That's perfect timing.
Carolyn, anything to add, or Sue? I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about, we're doing a lot of extra precautions on campus with the temperature check, that we know who should be in the building, who should not be in the building. That will make things much more easier for us to, work on the contact tracing should we need to.
I can speak to the faculty side unless Carol wants to hop in on this one. Yeah, well, we'll hope this doesn't happen, but it's certainly better to be prepared. So the expectation, the ask is that department chairs and discipline reps have a plan for course coverage if someone does need to take some time out, a plan that should be worked out ahead of time and in cooperation with faculty members for such an eventuality. Indeed, it really would be best, and I think this is being encouraged very strongly, that faculty take the lead on thinking and talking through what and who might be best to step in for their classes. I know there's discussions bubbling around out there about coming up with buddy systems or pods, which makes me think of Orca, but just binding together so that we can pitch in as needed. This could include allowing colleagues access to Canvas course shells, or sharing syllabi ahead of time, sitting in on, if you have time, on each other's classes, whatever works. I should say this is not a requirement. This is not mandatory. The point here is neither to be alarmist nor intrusive, but in those listening sessions I mentioned, I did hear a lot of serious concerns around this very issue. What if I get sick? What if a partner or a child gets sick or some other family member. So having a game plan would not only be supportive, for our students, and ensuring the a continuity of quality instruction, but I truly believe it would be a load off the mind of faculty who are already plenty stressed. I would also just add quickly is the deans have reminded me that, all of our colleges and our departments and human resources, have experience in addressing this sort of thing. It does happen, if quietly, on a regular basis. This is not completely terra incognita. They know how to pivot should the need arise. Having said that, though, given the current pandemic, I do think working out ahead of time a more, extensive or comprehensive system, buddies or pods or whatever you call it, makes a lot of sense.
And then I would just like to add, in terms of cleaning and disinfection, that we have CDC recommended protocols in place for any kind of cleaning of spaces should we have COVID positive cases on the campus. Our custodial services manager comes from healthcare and has lots of background in assuring that we have appropriate disinfection, and has done a really solid job of training our staff as well. We're well positioned with respect to disinfectant products and processes. And so that plan is in place should it be necessary to implement it as well.
So Carol, a follow up on the disinfectant process. So this question is citing some evidence that maybe the COVID-19 is not transmitted necessarily by touching surfaces as much as maybe thought early on, and then maybe things can be too clean to sort of defeat the purpose. So, you referenced you're following the latest CDC guidelines. I don't know if you want to comment, specifically on this aspect.
Sure. So the CDC has recognized for quite some time that surfaces are not the primary transmission vector for COVID. That being said, we would be remiss if we didn't include disinfecting and surface disinfecting as part of our protocol. But again, I would certainly agree with the person who brought this forward that surface disinfection by itself is not sufficient. That we must continue to utilize social distancing, making sure that we're using appropriate hand care, that we are staying home when we're sick, that we are wearing face coverings. Those are all of the things that will help us to protect ourselves and our campus community. In terms of the question of how much disinfecting is too much disinfecting, our protocols are around just wiping down and disinfecting high touch surfaces, which is not only good for COVID, it's good for any kind of germ transmission. And so I think that it just has to be part of a multi-pronged strategy, and we would be truly remiss if we indicated in any way that only wiping down surfaces would be a full spectrum of protection.
Thank you, Carol. Domenico, these might be yours relating to staff. I'm going to combine a couple of questions. There's still a question about when will staff need to come back, and I feel like that has been addressed pretty much, over the summer. But I don't know if you want to comment on that. And then sort of a follow-up question: campus operations, I believe, for the most part, have been going fairly smoothly with people in a remote format. So, do you maybe see this continuing, even after when we come out of the pandemic?
Those are good questions, and I know that they are on a lot of people's minds. But I think that we've been pretty clear that with regard to staff returning to campus, that as Carol said, if you can work remotely, you must work remotely. So there was no reason to come to campus unless your work on campus is essential for a variety of different reasons. And whether you're a researcher in a research lab or working in facilities that's guided by Carol's direction, then there is no reason to be on campus unless you must be on campus. So I don't expect staff or faculty to be returning to campus in the fall semester unless they need to be there to conduct their jobs. with regard to what happens after the pandemic, or even as this continues, one of the recommendations from the strategic plan was that we should look for opportunities to allow people to work remotely. And this is a great test case for us. So I think that as we find out that we can do our jobs remotely, that we will afford that opportunity to individuals as long as the jobs get done and no efficiency is compromised. As a matter of fact, as you pointed out, Ken, at the beginning, this seems like one long day. I think that individuals tend to be more efficient, perhaps, when they are working remotely. I know that that interruptions sometimes slow efficiencies down, but at the same time, these impromptu interactions with people are also helpful. So I think that even if we were going to go to a more remote atmosphere, that we would want to have people come to campus on a periodic basis so that we can have those serendipitous interactions and conversations that help us as well. So I think there is going to be probably a permanent change of how we do business going forward, but what the character of that is going to be is yet to be determined.
Thank you. And I will add, directors and supervisors during the summer did get a questionnaire that we were all required to fill out. I know I got one for my department. So your supervisor made the decision about who should be back on campus and who should not be. So I don't know who asked that question. I don't remember, but you may want to check with your direct supervisor about return plans and what decisions maybe went into that decision making. Laura, this next one's for you. Is there a threshold where a certain number of positive COVID cases on our campus would have to pivot us back to remote learning?
Ken, that's going to be defined by where the cases are, and if we're starting to make identifications and linking those back to each other, and really showing that we're having these clusters appearing on campus. If we're having, cases that are isolated, in certain areas, it may not necessitate us to go fully remote again. I think it's when we're going to start seeing clusters appear on campus. So great question. Thank you.
Sue, I love this question because people are thinking ahead, but I don't know if there's any insight into the winter. I know we haven't quite got to fall yet, but
for heaven's sake. Can we wait till September? No, we cannot wait till September. There's too much to do. Yeah, we are. It's been a topic of effort and conversation and interest. We are working on it. We have a proto plan for the winter term. Basically it's governed by the same two paramount goals as the fall: health and safety of the campus, ongoing commitment to a quality UM-Dearborn academic experience. Given the way things are shaping up with the pandemic, we are planning conservatively and aiming for much the same mix of modalities and campus densities as we're having in the fall. So that's more on this. We're very aware that folks are going to need time to consult. Again, since we have a little bit more lead time, I think departments will have more space to have some conversations about how to schedule things and appropriate modalities than perhaps we had for fall planning, which was a bit of a rush. But so we're trying to get those conversations going, and I would say people should begin to turn their head sooner than perhaps they want to thinking about the fall term, winter term. Oh.
Right.
It's all one day and all one season, so yeah, it's still winter, I think. Yeah, last winter.
Right. Okay, Amy, because you're in the front row, we may draft you for this one. Sue and Amy, I think this is to you. So Somebody has said, they want to know, are they overpromising students that we will have all of the services available that we would have had under normal circumstances? They may be remote, but they're still going to be there. Any comment on that? Are they overpromising, or?
Can Amy, it looks like.
Amy left the building.
It looks like Amy has left the building. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's too bad because I'm sure she could contribute.
I just got a note. She's an attendee now.
Lucky her. Yeah. No, I think we've all been impressed at how much of the campus mission has transitioned successfully to remote delivery. I mean, transactional support from admissions to financial aid through to scholarship support for our students, the library consultation, even really complex and sensitive things like counseling appointments on the student affairs side. So I think we found a lot of ways to get things done differently, off campus printing, curbside pickups. So no, I don't think we're overpromising, but I do think people must remember sort of past decisions made about a couple elements of campus life, notably our fall sports season, use of the field house, the wellness center. I mean, these are areas where risk mitigation was, considered to be more problematic. And but otherwise we're there.
Yeah, I would echo that. Amy's on the ELC with us, and I know she's done an outstanding job moving whatever can be remote, which I believe is pretty much everything. So a follow-up, I'm going to stay in this area. How do new students get their M cards? They're going to be required to get into the buildings. So what is the process on that?
So we have 2 ways for new students to get their M cards. First of all is just by appointment. So Chris Day is our person who handles that, and she will be reaching out first of all to new students who are coming to campus, so that we make sure that we're doing that cohort first. And she'll be making individual appointments so that students will come in by appointment and will have their photo taken and will receive their M card. And then after that, we'll be following on later in the fall period with appointments as necessary for new students who do not have on-campus classes.
Sue, maybe this one goes to you. There's a question about when can we start bringing students to campus for tours, new students in particular? And if not soon, can we do virtual tours?
Yeah.
On that, but I'll let you take the lead.
Yeah, no, oh, now I'm choking. Yeah, I checked in. Thank you for the person who raised the question, and it was interesting to read more about Lawrence Tech. And I did talk about this with Melissa Stone and her team. We do not at present plan to offer in-person tours. Not sure it's the best option, certainly not consistent with the fall plans to limit our on-campus presence. And there's some uncertainty if it would provide students with a real meaningful experience of, what our campus life is really like. Surreal, I think, is one word I've heard. It's not our usual vibe. But good news is the admissions team began offering by appointment, and they began in July. They are offering virtual tours to prospective students. These are led by current students. So there's kind of a peer-to-peer connection. It's more of a student-led experience. In addition, final admissions is finalizing a sort of a virtual experience calendar for the fall. So there'll be virtual information sessions, virtual information tours, personalized counselor session, college-specific information sessions. So, there will be content out there and carefully thought through and delivered content emphasizing peer interaction. They feel confident, and I concur that these are plans that will be able to provide prospective students, with a strong sense of, the benefits that UM-Dearborn can offer them, but do it in a virtual and a safe format. And that's the way I think we have to go right now.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add, I know my department has been in conversations with Melissa and her team, and more virtual video type work is definitely it's on the list. We will catch up to it quickly. I don't know if this question's been answered, but this question is, what is the protocol for students that may have a on-campus, in-person course, and then their next course is remote, but they might not have enough time to get to their home or to wherever they're going to take that class? And I know the answer to that, but I don't know, Sue, if you want to talk about it or about
Amy, I just asked everyone for cheat sheets on, make sure I get it right. Amy gave me the following information. So it's a concern, you know, we don't want students online and then they have to, you know, immediately, we want, you know, normally want them to say, go back to their car, go home, you know, be safe. But what if you have an immediate, you know, online class just afterwards? So if students either have 2 or more closely timed face-to-face courses on the same day, or if they have 2 or more closely timed face-to-face and synchronous courses on the same day, or if they're students who are working as part of the screening process and, you know, don't have a long enough break between working and a course, then they're going to get an email that provides them information about temporary student study space. This is akin to the faculty and staff space that students can request. We're going to get a Google form together so they can go there, you know, and be, you know, have, you know, good workspace appropriately monitored, you know, for the time that they have between their classes. Carol, do you want to talk about what's going to be in those spaces?
Sure.
Yeah.
So those spaces will be reservable in advance so that we will tie them in with students who have that need. They will have spaces where they have they'll certainly have access to printers, so network printers, utilizing either their own electronic equipment or computers are available in that space as well. And our goal is to have them tied. We have one that will be in the Castle area and one that will be in the natural sciences area, are places that we've identified at this point.
Okay.
Chancellor, a couple questions related to budget. If you're able to answer, there's questions about when might some of the things that have been taken away, when could they be reinstated, retirement contributions, tuition reimbursement, M-Healthy, those types of things.
Well, retirement contributions have not been taken away. That has not been taken away. I don't know whether any of the other ones have been taken away. We were limiting our contribution to courses that were not taken on campus if they were taken at another university. So I don't think we've really restricted many of our benefits at all. We have tried to be very careful about our spending in a lot of different areas, but on an employee basis, I don't think we've made significant inroads in terms of reducing benefits. If you could be, is there more specificity, Ken?
No, well, the retirement tuition and M-Healthy. I know M-Healthy was definitely suspended for sure.
Oh, well, M-Healthy, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's a question here about some layoffs that happened earlier in the summer. If there's any comment on that. Oh,
you said layoffs.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, I thought you said playoffs, and I was wondering what sport we were talking about there.
Well, we're in Detroit, and our teams are not in the playoffs.
If only, yeah. If only.
No, yeah, those, I have to say, that is the most difficult decision that all of us have to deal with, is changing an individual's career trajectory. We don't do that lightly, and we did everything in our power to minimize any type of layoffs or involuntary furloughs that we've had to deal with. We have laid off a few people, and actually we've called back individuals for different tasks as well. So as soon as opportunities exist, we try to get as many people back as possible or reassign them before we have to get to that point. The the places where we had to do layoffs or really consider personnel actions are places where the work has changed and there are no opportunities to reassign the individual. And that's been truly unfortunate, but we are looking for all different ways to bring people back as opportunities present themselves. So we don't foresee further personnel actions at the moment, but as the provost said, we don't know what fall enrollment is going to look like until the beginning of September. And that's really going to be playing a major role in what our budget's going to look like. In addition to that, we also don't know what our state appropriation is going to be until we get closer to the state's fiscal year. And the state, as you know, is foreshadowing a pretty significant shortfall in their state revenue, their tax revenue. So I think everybody is going to be hit a little bit. But having said that, everything that we've done, and Ken, you said this, we've planned for shortfalls. So we're trying to gear up for what it's going to look like and readjust our operating plans. So this is all part of our plan that unless we plan for something that's less than what actually happens, I think that so far we're going to be in a good position.
And actually, there was a little bit of optimism at the state level recently where revenues are a little bit higher than what they thought. So that's good news, and let's hope it continues on that trajectory.
That's good.
I'm going to stay on the budget thing. I can take the lead on this, but there's a question about what part of the budget is all of this coming from as we prepare. I know I want to acknowledge Noel Hornbacher is on the EOC, and he's an incredible resource because as we talk about testing stations and signage and having to send something because we can't hand deliver it any longer, he's directing where these expenses can go. And so we are using CARES funding for a lot of these expenses. And for my fellow EOC people, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, but thank you, Noel, for your leadership in that. I don't know if you're on the call, but we are every penny we spend, if it can go into that bucket, that's where it's going. I don't know, anything to add? No. Okay.
Yeah, it's really, Carol and Laura can speak to it more directly, but a lot of, taking care of the necessary infrastructure for the campus, the response has been greatly assisted by the CARES funding. And as we've been able to supply some, equipment for additional sort of tech equipment for faculty. We're acquiring more, laptops that could be loaned to students. I mean, it's just giving us a sort of a buffer to be able to do things to ameliorate, as indeed the CARES Act was intended to do, ameliorate the impact of the pandemic.
We had some good news. For those of you, you may recall, we did a virtual commencement ceremony, and a lot of those expenses were moved over to the CARES Act funding, which was great for us. So,
yeah.
Carol, this one's for you. Any upgrades or anything, any work done to our HVAC systems in the building to help with airflow as we return?
Yes, so a couple things that I'd like to mention about that. This is one of the things that both CDC and ASHRAE have recommended. So we've done some assessments of our HVAC system. That information is posted on the EOC website. There's a series of 11 different questions that we have some specific responses to that I won't go into, but if you're looking for the technical details on all of that, it's posted on the EOC website under COVID. Overall, what I will say is that prior to opening buildings, we are purging them for 7 days. So we run the HVAC system 24/7 for 7 days before we open the buildings. We have assessed outside air and determined where we can go to 100% outside air and not adversely affect the humidity or other things that need to be controlled within the buildings. Our lab buildings, of course, always run on 100% outside air. We've disabled demand control ventilation so that we're continuing to interject outside air into the building. Let me see if there's anything else in detail. I don't think there's anything else that I'd like to speak to specifically, but again, if you're interested in all of the details, the EOC website is the place to look.
Okay. Next question, when do the return to campus guides go into effect? I think it's sort of a hybrid of information in there. My panelists can correct me if I'm wrong, but their policy on face masks, for example, is in effect now. They need to be worn on campus inside and out, regardless about social distancing. Of course, some of the operations won't be effective till students come back, so we won't have the station set up outside of buildings until the first day of class. But panelists, anything you wanted to add, on the information we put out last Friday?
Well, I think it's all good advice. So if it's applicable to what you're doing now, do it. But a lot of it is, for the comeback to campus. I think, as I said, I would look at that pledge. I do think that's quite something.
So specifically at this time, we are implementing the things that we need so that we're prepared for September 1st. So building purges are happening at this time. Water system flushings are happening. Signage that we talked about is present in buildings that are open right now for research, will be present in buildings that are open for students by September 1st. There's a lot of scrambling going on in the background to make sure that that happens. And of course, as Ken indicated, policies that with respect to managing the pandemic are in effect at this time and will continue to be so as we go forward.
Ken, a question came in that I think should go to the top of the list. Someone asked what EOC stands for. So can you just give a description of that so that everybody's on the same page, please?
Sorry. Yes, EOC stands for Emergency Operations Center, and there's representatives from various departments across campus. There's about 20 of us on the committee or so, and we're charged with day-to-day policy procedure development, handling questions, making decisions, and from time to time, many of these elements, we're asked to do proposals and recommendations to the chancellor. And so based on a task given to us or a situation that we're dealing with, it rolls up to a higher level, and then the chancellor gives us direction as to which way he would like to go. And so the EOC has been meeting, as you've heard, daily, pretty much since March. And hopefully that slackens a little bit going forward, but we've got to know each other very, very well.
It goes so far back. Our first few meetings were actually in person, and the first meeting we were all like, sitting there, and then next meeting we began to start to move apart, and after that was kind of the whole story in a nutshell. But yeah, it's a hardworking group of people.
So I just want to call attention, it is 3 o'clock. We mentioned that the second half was going to be more devoted to faculty specific questions. That may not be the case now. We're looking at questions come in. So we're going to keep going for and staff are always invited to stay on. So please do, but there's a few more questions that we wanted to get through. And then of course, if you have more, continue to add them, but we may end up ending a little bit early here. So I just wanted to call out 3 o'clock. We're going to keep going, about 10 more questions to go. Next question, will students have access to printing? I can take that one. We're working on a partnership with a gift card. Students that need printing services can sign up for this, and they're able to go to a Kinko's or to a local printer in the area to address their printing needs. So that was an idea that came up from the EOC, acknowledging there could be students that need that service, and it may be safer, more convenient for them to go to a place near their home and not have to come to campus if they don't need to.
Ken, I think that the relationship is going to be with FedEx. Am I incorrect on that?
That may have changed. Yeah, because there were more complications with that.
Okay, that was the last I had heard.
Sorry. It was, yeah. It tweaked. It's still not finalized, and so that's we're still working on those details. And students will be communicated about this program once we have the details finalized.
Maybe FedEx bought Kinko's. I don't know.
What is FedEx Kinko's?
Also, there will be, as Carol said, printing facilities in that student temporary study space for those students who have a time bind. So.
Next question. Can the campus get soft phones to assist students for the first couple of weeks of classes?
If the person who asked that question could say a little bit more, because I've got my crack team here to back me up, and they're telling me what a soft phone is, but they're not quite sure how it would be helping students. Is it about students being able to speak to a live person or giving students phone access? And Carrie Schumacher in ITS also thinks financial aid and START and student accounts either have them or maybe in the process of getting them. So I guess it depends if the question is about, and student affairs as well. So I guess the question is it the support teams for the students, in which case either they have them or they're getting them, or is it the students themselves? And I had no idea what a soft phone was until 10 minutes ago. So that's that's all I can, I'm out. So.
Sue, I'm with you. I didn't know what it was either. I'm glad you took it. A question about the data that we're collecting when people swipe their cards. Is it going to be used for anything other than our own private uses, if there's a need for contact tracing and to verify that individual is permitted in that building?
No, we're gonna, there are data stewards that are vigilant about how data is used, and data is going to be very restricted. And it's only to check to make sure that the student or the faculty member or staff member belong in that building, and if there needs to be any contact tracing. And that's the only use of that information. And I don't want anybody to think that we're monitoring to see if people actually come to campus, come to work, because we're trying to get people not to come to work. So I don't want anybody feeling compelled that they have to swipe their card to prove that they were at work in any type of fashion.
Yeah, no, it truly is we want to make sure that the people entering the building should be in the building. You know, it's very much aligned with the philosophy and the policy in place that if you don't need to be there, you need to stay home. If you're coming to campus to gather materials in your office, can you retrieve files from your computer and use the scanner to scan documents to your email? Maybe a supervisor question.
Well, maybe Carol could review the access policy, because I think there's still a little bit of uncertainty about the one-time access versus the the M-card access. That might be worth just a quick review, and then we can come back and answer the question.
Absolutely, happy to do so. So we have just recently aligned our access processes for campus with the department access coordinators. So the DACs for each department, who have in the past, pre-COVID, managed key access and card access. Those are, again, your primary point of contact. So we have two ways to come onto campus. One is one-time access, and that's really if you need to be on campus for less than an hour. So you're coming, you need to pick up mail, you need to pick up files from your from your office. I would think if you need to come in and scan for a couple of minutes, it would fit into that process. That goes through your DAC as a one-time access process. And ultimately, you are let into the building by DPPS. So you get to the campus, you call DPPS, they buzz you into the building, you conduct your work less than an hour, and then you leave the building. So the reason that we restrict this to an hour is because we permit people to come in for a short period of time, even if the building is offline. And so we don't want you to be in the building for extended periods of time, because we're not running HVAC in those offline buildings, and we're not providing custodial services. So that's truly one time in and out. If you have a need to be on the campus for ongoing purposes or for an extended period of time, that goes through the M-card access process, again through your DAC. But here we watch things a little bit more closely, and we make sure if you're going to be in the building for an extended period of time, you're in a building that is not offline. If you need to work, we put you into a temporary workspace or something like that in a building that provides you with the services that you need. But again, in this case, you would actually get M-Card access that would provide you with access to a specific location for a specific period of time based on your needs to come to campus. Again, this process also assesses to make sure that before you come, your supervisor signs off that you've completed your online COVID training and that you have completed your daily health screening before you come to campus.
Sure.
And if someone wants to, you know, if scanning is on a communal, you know, Xerox scanning machine thing, what's your advice? Wipe it down before and after use?
So in general, these are sort of the ways that we look at things. If you're in a closed building, then that means people aren't coming and going anyway. So I'm less concerned about that. If you're in a building that's not closed, then disinfecting supplies will be available. And I encourage you, however, electronics are very sensitive. So we encourage you to spray the paper towel, not the equipment, so that the person who comes next actually has access to that same equipment.
Thank you. Laura, you referenced this earlier. Dearborn was reported today as a hotspot in Wayne County. Does this impact our plans at all? I know you mentioned, you acknowledged that earlier, you know, how we're closely monitoring numbers and so forth. I don't know if you have anything additional to comment about that.
No, Wayne County has always been a hot spot in the state, and Dearborn's numbers have always been the close second right after the city of Detroit within the county. So that really hasn't changed, and that has not shifted our plans at all.
Question about, can faculty and staff come to campus to look at fall colors and those types of things? I do know that the trail is open that connects into Hines Park. That's open to the public. I would say that face coverings need to happen, and if you don't need to be there, please don't be there. But there are the trails along the western edge of campus that are definitely available. Chancellor, I don't know if you have anything to add. I know our campus is pretty in the fall, and we have the EIC, of course. It's pretty.
You know, that's a tough question because public parks are open. We're trying to do everything to minimize populating the campus. So if you could find alternative viewing sites as leaf peepers, then I think that I would encourage that if possible.
Faculty question here about they're going to be teaching. How do they get tested for COVID? I know, Laura, you mentioned that, and I believe letters are going out to faculty that are impacted by this today or tomorrow, correct? Just want to verify.
Most likely tomorrow, Ken, yes.
Tomorrow, okay. And if they don't receive a letter, who should they contact?
They can contact myself, and I'll work through the channels to see why they may have been missed.
Okay. Sue, there's a question here. Are faculty members having trouble getting access to Canvas? Can they contact your office?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anise, I saw that. Yeah. Yeah. Get in touch, and we'll sort this out.
There's a question here about supporting students that would rather stay home than to be in a lease with the union. I know this has come up in the past. Our administration has been working closely with the union, encouraging them to alter business practices to take care of students. And unfortunately, it's not our facility, but there is a lot of discussion with them, encouragement. And I know our administration is working when suggesting things to make sure that our students are safe over there that are that have chose to sign leases.
I agree with what you said. Unfortunately, our influence over the union is limited to the power of persuasion. We do not own them. We do not have any contractual agreement with them except to rent some space from them. But we have been trying to ask them to be as generous in their thinking about our students as possible. And we've talked to them about their testing protocols as well as their lease arrangements.
Sue, question about, are we going to have a delayed winter start? I think you addressed this earlier, that we're working on, your office is working on plans, and we'll communicate what that looks like by October 1st.
If not before, yep.
Not before. What will stations look like? Check-in stations in bad weather. Don't say wet, Carol, but will there be any types of protective coverings or those types of things? It's a great question.
It is a great question. So our goal is to move people into the building as fast as we can. If we are able to project inclement weather, I suspect we will be able to easily move the stations back farther into the building. But that said, as all of us know, we live in Michigan. So I encourage you to dress warmly in the winter, to bring an umbrella, and wear your boots.
Okay, Gerald, you're having trouble finding the HVAC information on the ELC website. Carol will reach out to you after the meeting. I'll pass your information along.
Okay, I can certainly do that.
Sue, there's a sounds faculty question. It's not a dumb question. It's a good question. For electronic meetings of classes, are we using anything other than conference feature within Canvas?
You know, yes, I see, asked by Michael. Let me ask my crack team of experts here, and we can come back to that, so.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Carrie, our CIO, just verified that the data from the swiping card is not used for anything other than the purpose to get into the building. Thank you, Carrie. Another faculty question, Sue, which is good. This is faculty hour. Will the university be able to provide faculty with green screens for recording?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I pinged Chris Casey, the head of digital education, about this, and he says green screens have not been part of DE recording options in the past, and probably when we reopen our recording facilities, probably not going to be available then either. But still thinking about green screens as a possibility in the future, you know, time and resources permitting. That said, I should say another thing that the CARES funding is allowing us to do is set up a second recording studio that will be located in the Castle building. The equipment is, I believe, currently being purchased. So there'll be a couple different spaces on campus where faculty will be able to come in and record, as well as the CECS sponsored space in the PEC that's been heroically chugging along and allowing faculty to record for quite some time now. And I would keep your eyes peeled for more information from the hub and from digital education on all that.
How does M-Card applications work for new faculty?
So,
good question.
Yep.
So again, for new faculty, Chris Day will contact them and set up an appointment to get their cards. Again, it's not necessary for instructional faculty to have M cards in order to access the building. Nope, I take that back, because they have to go through the screening process. Ignore all of that. New faculty will get M cards, and Chris Day will facilitate that process. So she'll work with HR to make sure that you're contacted.
A couple of questions that came in. There was a question about specifically to Fairlane Center North and being able to bring in boxes of books. We've asked that person should contact Carol Glick directly. She'll handle that offline. Talked about. There was also a question about encouraging students to purchase computers with Windows and not necessarily Macs. I think, Sue, can that be directed to your office? I don't.
Yeah, no, and actually I'm gonna, if the person who, the question was from someone who teaches software that's not available on Macs, and since our students can't use computer labs now, the question was, can they recommend to students that if purchasing a laptop for school, they should choose a Windows machine. And I raised this with Carrie Schumacher in ITS, and she very, very much wants to know what the software in question is so that ITS can look into finding a solution to making it available. I guess it is possible to remote into labs using my desktop, something like that for some things. So she's very eager to hear what the issue precisely is. Just FYI on student, tech support or equipment support, please remember there is federal CARES money that was made available to students for specifically providing educational support, such as buying computers, and there's still CARES money that students can ask for. We're trying to find out if those who've already gotten some can ask again. Stay tuned. And then there's also CARES money that came to the institution, which we're using, again, as mentioned, in various ways. And part of that is reinforcing student computer access. The library and ITS were loaning out Chromebooks and laptops to students. They've been doing that pretty much since the pandemic began. And we began to hear some faculty concerns about ongoing needs. So we're purchasing another 40 laptops for students who need longer term, like semester long student loans. So we're, as we hear about these issues, we're trying to address them. But if you want to let me know the specific software concern, we can work on it.
So another question, is it possible to get portable whiteboards or blackboards of reasonable size for remote teaching?
Oh.
Good question.
Good question. Well, why don't we go back to the question about other things than Canvas conference? The hub says Zoom, Blue Jeans, and Google Meet are all viable solutions. And I said, a good person to talk to would be the hub. And if you need more information than that, since it sounds like you're new to campus, we'd be happy to offer it. Let me find out what I can. So Carrie's saying, not sure why a portable whiteboard would be better than a tablet, a Wacom tablet, and someone else is saying you can use a whiteboard in Zoom, and I'm already out of my depth. So.
Well, they had me at soft phone, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. A question about flu shots. I know this came up in the EOC because we typically bring medical personnel to campus to administer flu shots. Are we doing that this year on campus? I know we just talked about this week. I forgot what we decided. Laura, Carol?
We would not be doing that on campus this year.
We're not. Okay. Question, who is doing the checks at the check-in stations?
So those checks are being, that process is being managed by the University Unions and Events team. So it will be a combination of university staff and student workers. So every station will have a university staff person.
Will student organizations exist on campus in the fall? Amy, you can kick me if I answer this incorrectly, but the answer is yes. I think we mentioned that earlier, that Amy's team has done a really great job, transitioning to remote gatherings, for these student orgs. Sue, I think I'm right?
That's correct. Yeah, no, it's a student orgs, and it's been laid out for a while now that remote student activity makes sense, and I think that's probably, I don't. Amy can weigh in if there's any update on that, but I think that's the way to go.
Carol, this one might be for you. When will faculty and staff that require Ann Arbor parking, when will they be notified if that's been approved?
So I would expect that to be sometime mid-September. Frankly, it's not on the top of our list right now as we're preparing to bring students back to campus. If you have an immediate need, just contact me and we'll work through it.
let's see.
Question about funding to pay faculty for extra work this summer. I don't know how you want to address that one.
I'm not sure what's being referred to. To be honest,
Should they just reach out to your office directly?
yeah, let me know if there's a misunderstanding somewhere. There's more green screen and whiteboard conversations going on here.
Dominica, a question about budget, about utility savings. Are they going to the units? I know that the pandemic has caused strain on the entire university, so I'm assuming any savings goes to, it's going to be handled centrally and dispersed out.
That's a good question. We don't have an RCM model, so the units are not currently charged for utilities. So any utility savings would go back to where they're being paid out of, which is centrally, as you said, Ken. If we had an RCM model where the utilities were being charged to the units, and they would go back to the units, but we don't charge the units for utilities.
Okay. There was a question earlier. Are faculty permitted to travel abroad right now if they're teaching remotely or maybe have a sabbatical?
There is a prohibition on university-related travel.
That's still in effect. That's what I thought.
Yeah, university related travel, yeah, no. Or university sponsored, university paid for travel. I haven't heard of any discussion of that changing either, and it seems unlikely at the present time. So let's see.
Panelists, we seem to have exhausted most of I think all of the questions. I don't know if you want to do a quick scan to see if there's anything I missed, or I know there's been some conversation about colors of screens.
Yeah, and I think there may be some comments coming in on that. There was a question about supplemental instruction that came in earlier. Ken?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Will student supplemental instructors be used, and could faculty have access to SI resources, please?
Please. Yeah. So yes, SI will be being used this fall term. I think Jess LaGrange and Mitch Sullenberger and their team have been working with faculty and colleges to get the courses set up. I think Jess sent out an email to the academic advisors. There's a sort of a jazzed up, updated webpage about student success resources folks might want to take a peek at. So Jess is a good go-to about SI particulars, but I think the underlying question is what classes get selected to receive SI support. My understanding, and I'm still new here, but my understanding is that the priority has historically been given to putting SI into high DEW gateway courses, or for courses that are really key for majors or for proceeding to graduation. But what I've heard from the team is if there are faculty out there who want SI to be attached to their class, who have really good undergraduate students who've taken the class and would like to be SI leaders, then there's certainly room for a conversation. So again, I'd reach out to Mitch and to Jess. I think they'd be all ears, and we could see what might be done.
So do you want to say a few words about the committee that you are putting together on care and community?
Yeah, it's early days, and more soon, and but this kind of goes back to a letter that was composed by faculty from the Women and Gender Studies program, just speaking to some of the what we're all very aware is some some accelerating inequities on campus, different populations having different, work and personal pressures, and, what our institution should do about that, what our responsibilities are, what our, what the right, doing the right thing is. This plugs into a lot of thinking that group and many others on campus have been thinking about, sort of, the, ethics of care, or cultures of care thinking. And it seemed like an important thing to pick up and try to carry forward. So a very small team of us got together and decided, I think it started being called the Family Care Task Force. Now we want to call it the Care and Equity Task Force. And we'll only be, right now it's just the nascent group, but we'll be reaching out for ideas and, everything from what sort of, how we can articulate ways of encouraging support for, more vulnerable or stressed populations on campus. Possibly, are there ways we can deploy our expertise, our student assets to help out, faculty, staff, to, help them with some of the current burdens. But early stages, but we're aware that, there's more that we have to do here, and we will. So.
One looks like maybe one of the last questions, but is it possible for one-time access? Do we need an updated parking pass? The answer is yes. That was communicated earlier. There's no charge for parking, but people that are going to be on campus need a sticker. And then this next question I'll follow up with Noel on. It was announced that reimbursement will happen on parking that was not used at the end of the winter semester into the summer. So I don't know if anyone on the panel can answer that question, when that's going to hit checks, but I'll have Noel. I'll reach out to Noel after this for follow-up. Okay. Okay, how are we going to deal with people that don't wear masks and don't social distance? Good question. Laura's going to come after them.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, no, we have an answer.
So I think in general, the goal is for us to approach this as a campus community. So what I've told my team members who came back relatively early is this is a cultural change for all of us. And so I think it's really important for us to assume from the beginning that it may be an oversight on someone's part, and to approach people gently and with care and kindness, but also make it clear that this is how we all take care of each other, and it's an important part of the culture on our campus. And that's I strongly encourage that as a first step.
I can add, there are policies that were created for enforcement, both for faculty and staff and students. People will be monitoring this very closely. And I think it's what has been said earlier. This is all on us. If our plan's going to work, people have to follow the rules. And
yeah, I was just trying to find the link to I've got so many things open on my computer, it's not funny. But faculty should know there is a classroom sort of management policy on this issue that lays out the steps if a student is non-compliant. The protocols one should follow. Try to ask them privately to put on a mask if they refuse. Dismiss. Well, read the policy, but basically your option can be to dismiss the class, go file a care report, and the student there'll be an intervention with the student to discuss next steps and to figure out exactly what's going on. I do take Carol's point that it coming at it as a sort of a conversation first is a good way to go. But there is, this has been a concern for quite a while, and I think we've a lot of thought went into figuring out our options, and I'm hoping this will not be a big issue on our campus.
Right, and I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, but we have purchased face coverings for faculty and staff, and
Yep.
students that are going to be on campus are going to be at the check-in table. Should people not have them, they're branded. They look really cool, so that we're doing what we can to have them, in place. Should people need them.
Yeah.
So panelists, questions are drying up. I don't know if you want to do one more pass. I think we've exhausted them. I don't know if there's any final words from any of the panelists. This was a good discussion.
Ken, I would just like to close my remarks by saying that I want to thank everybody that you heard from today. That they've done a terrific job. A lot of thinking went into this, and I hope everybody who was in attendance feels that they are being protected in terms of their safety, and they're being supported in terms of conducting their mission. Those are our two primary goals, is making sure that they're safe and that we continue to offer the education that's expected of UM-Dearborn. So I hope that everybody that was in attendance had their questions answered. If not, you can contact various offices on campus, and we'll try to get you answers as soon as possible. And again, I want to thank Ken Yu. You did a terrific job in moderating this. You could do a presidential debate in the future. Unfortunately, we're not going to have one. We're not going to have one on our campus, but you would have been terrific for that. And I want to thank my colleagues who I am very, very fortunate to have working at the university in support of our mission. We've got a great team, and everybody should be very proud of them. So I'll just close my section. I'll leave it to anybody else who wants to say anything, just by saying, go blue and go Dearborn, and stay safe.
Stay safe.
Says it all. Yep.
No, I'll just add, as we mentioned, there is a student town hall that will be recorded. We will post that on the website, so if you're interested to hear what we are going to share with students, I promise you it's going to be a lot of the same things, if not almost identical. And then just a reminder, if you enjoy town halls, we have another one scheduled for Thursday at 11 o'clock to review the new sexual misconduct policy. So lots of town halls this week, but a lot of good information that needs to be shared. So I just want to remind people about that town hall as well. And I hope everyone does we have a couple more weeks of summer. Enjoy it, relax. It's going to be an interesting fall. So, but all right. So thank you everyone, panelists. Thank you IT for the support. Can't do it without you. And thank you all for joining us today. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, take care.